All right. Time to go live, folks. How's it going? Chuck Holton here, coming to you from Panama, my studio here at my place. And we've got a lot to cover, so I'm just going to get right to it. The IDF and Shin Bet uh, thwarted a plot to assassinate the national security minister of Israel, Itamar Ben-Gvir. We're going to talk more about that. We're going to talk about a new nuclear reactor being built in the region that's raising some eyebrows. And we're going to talk about a whole lot more than that. I mean, there's just a ton of stuff happening. As a matter of fact, just before we went live, whoop, probably don't hear me very well unless I put my microphone on. Uh, just before I went live, we got word that Hamas has released a new proof of life video from one of the hostages. So we're going to talk about that as well. Do me a favor while you're listening, go and hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast, and also write in the chat box where you're watching from. We'd like to say there's somebody from Chester, West Virginia. There's somebody from Israel. I love seeing people from the land. Bakersfield, California. Chino Hills, California. Northern Ireland. We got people. Wow. William, thank you very much. Very nice of you. People coming in from all over the place. El Paso, Texas. Yeehaw. So let's first talk about what's going on with Itamar Ben-Gvir. Well, wait a minute. I want to run down the rest of the things that are on the list today, okay? The highlights are the Houthis are accusing Saudi Arabia of taking down their missiles as their missiles are on their way to Israel. It's not like they should expect Saudi Arabia not to, since those missiles are flying over Saudi Arabia. The thing is, Saudi Arabia isn't. They're just falling into Saudi Arabia. I heard that a camel got killed because they suck. That's all there is to it. An important leader in the Palestinian Islamic Jihad found refuge in Egypt, and he's now hiding out in Egypt. He apparently escaped from from Gaza, I guess, and went to Egypt. So that's exciting. Turkey is hosting Hamas leaders, and we're going to talk more about that with this assassination plot. And there's a new satellite that's been launched by Israel that may change the game. And so also, Smotrich unveils a new sovereignty plan to take over 82% of Judea and Samaria, and says that that will put to bed the idea of a two-state solution, because Israel's going to declare sovereignty over most of the land they want to give to the Palestinians. I say they, I mean people in the United Nations and France and Belgium, and that people have no business whatsoever and giving away Israeli land, want to give it to the Palestinians. Well, Smotrich is saying, let's just take it over, declare sovereignty over that land. And it's already Israeli land anyway, so why not? And this is kind of funny, but the president of Algeria has threatened to send his army into Gaza. And when asked what they would do there, he kind of floundered a little bit, to say the least. We'll talk more about that in a minute. If I forget, remind me, because that's a pretty funny story. Now, before we go any further, let's talk about our sponsor for today's podcast, Preserve Gold. Preserve Gold, you see here the website, preservegold.com/hotzone. They sell all kinds of gold, silver, platinum, you name it, real physical gold that you can put in your hands. And look, gold just shattered a record. It just hit an all-time high of $3,600 an ounce for the very first time in history. That's a 33% gain year to date, which means that's more than 3.5 times what the S&P 500 has done in the same time period. 3.5 times the S&P 500 this year. Now, gold normally doesn't outperform the S&P 500 every year, but this year it did. And what that means is that proves that gold is a hedge against chaos. There's plenty of chaos happening in the world, as you know. So if you don't already have real physical gold in your portfolio, well, you're kind of late. But it's not too late. My friends at Preserve Gold make it simple. And whether you want coins in your hand or a fully insured gold IRA, you can go to preservegold.com/hotzone or text Chuck to 50505 and they will send you a free wealth guide. You can call them on the phone. They'll talk you through the whole process. It's simple, it's easy, and it makes sense in times like these. So no pressure, no gimmicks. You don't want to miss out. Sitting out gold at this time is not a wise move. So it'd be a good time to get in. So check out preservegold.com/hotzone. Okay, now, first let's talk about what happened with the National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir. I have some video of him where he went up on the Temple Mount recently and prayed on the Temple Mount. Check this out.
סרטוני הזוועה של החמאס באים על רקע דבר אחד, הניסיון שלהם ליצור לחץ על מדינת ישראל. ואני אומר דווקא מכאן, מהר הבית, המקום בו הוכחנו שאפשר לעשות ריבונות ומשילות. דווקא מכאן צריך להעביר מסר ולדאוג שכבר היום כובשים את כל רצועת עזה, מכריזים ריבונות בכל רצועת עזה.
So I'm going to fast forward this a little bit where he went walking around and praying on the Temple Mount with a bunch of other sort of, I guess you'd call them right-wingers. See, a lot of people would call that an intentional faux pas because there's kind of an agreement that Israelis can go up onto the Temple Mount, but they can't pray on the Temple Mount because the Muslims who are there at the the Dome of the Rock are in the Al-Aqsa Mosque, that they get pretty exercised about something like that. And so that's something that has kind of been prohibited on the Temple Mount for a long time. Now, from time to time, people go up there and they pray. I mean, I went to the Temple Mount earlier in the war, I think back in November of last year, and I went up on the Temple Mount and I recited scripture and prayed while I was up there, but there was nobody around to hear me, and so it's not like I was really making anybody upset. Now, I just want to point out one thing about that, and that's the sort of nuclear hypocrisy of the Muslims in Jerusalem losing their ever-loving minds over some Israelis going up and singing and dancing and praying on the Temple Mount, when the Muslims themselves pray over all of Jerusalem in the most annoying way possible. Let's see if I've got that video here. Take a look. This speaker back here was just added by the Muslims, although there are really no Muslims in this area. They're basically claiming ownership of this part of the Christian quarter here in Old Town Jerusalem. So I don't know if you've ever heard that before, but that is happening all around the Middle East, all over Israel, as a matter of fact, because Israel will allow Muslims to build mosques. And so the Muslims are building them all over the place. And they always put up these towers at their mosques. And then they put a gigantic loudspeaker on the tower and blast it out at ear-bleeding levels all across the town 5 times a day, starting at about 4 o'clock in the morning. And the one at 4 o'clock in the morning is The guy is saying, I think, hey, get up. Praying is better than sleeping. You should be praying right now. Things like that. It's really annoying. And they do this in the Christian village of Jish. They built a mosque right next to the main Maronite Christian church in that Christian village. And they play their loudspeakers over the church services at times. Now, look, and they just say, well, this is our tradition. This is what we believe you have to do as a Muslim. If you're going to be a good Muslim, we have to put up these muezzin, and we have to put out these calls to prayer 5 times a day. I would say, if I was in charge, I'd say, okay, fine. But if that's what your, 7th century book tells you to do, then you have to do it the way they did it in the 7th century, which is you can't use any amplification whatsoever. You can have a guy standing up there singing his lungs out if you want, but he's probably not going to wake a whole lot of people up, and that's just fine. I mean, the noise pollution caused by Muslims around the globe is staggering, and it happens in the United States as well, up in Dearborn, Michigan, places like that, in New York, and understand that Muslims believe that anything that is within the sound of the muezzin call belongs to Islam forever. When they are doing that, what they're doing is they're claiming ownership over the land. And Westerners just don't get that. They don't understand that. Again, nuclear level hypocrisy that they got mad at Itamar Ben-Gvir when he went up on the Temple Mount and said a quiet prayer, standing quietly. I mean, it's not like he was doing anything crazy. There were people there who were singing and making more noise, for sure. But the minister was not. And so I don't understand why that should be such a big deal. Again, I prayed when I went up on the Temple Mount quietly to myself and quoted some scripture quietly, didn't, shove it in anybody's face. We are not called to, beat the hell out of people. We're called to love the hell out of people, and that's what I believe. So, all that to say, Ben-Gvir going up there put a target on him bigger than he had before. Now, he already had a target, and you can see watching this video, I'll turn the sound down a little bit. Those guys in the masks are his security detail. And I don't know why all of the secret security guys in Israel wear masks like that, maybe just to preserve their identities, but they do, and Gvir has to have a lot of security. But what they found was there was a cell of terrorists who was planning to assassinate Ben-Gvir with a drone. So an investigation revealed that the suspects acquired multiple different kinds of drones. I'll show you some in a minute. And they were from the area of Hebron, but and when they were arrested, it was found out that they were being operated by a Hamas cell in Turkey. So what does that tell us? Hamas is operating in Turkey unimpeded. They still have people in Judea, Samaria, and Hebron. We know they've got people in Lebanon. They probably have people in Jordan and Syria. So if Israel manages to wipe out Hamas in Gaza, they're not anywhere close to done yet, because there's a lot more Hamas where that came from. They're like cockroaches. And so in this case, they busted this cell in Hebron that was being directed by a Hamas cell in Turkey, and they had these drones that look like this. Now, the drone on the left in the white box is a DJI Avata. That's an FPV drone, first person view. And I actually have one in this room somewhere. I've got an FPV drone, and I meant to get it out and show it to you, but I don't know where I put it. I don't know where it is at the moment. However, the one on the right is a DJI Mavic drone, it looks like. And both of these drones are quite dangerous by themselves. That FPV drone, the Avata, can fly 50 or 60 miles an hour. And so even if you just ran it into somebody, you can hurt them pretty bad. And people have been hurt pretty bad when they get hit with those things. Some of those drones will go well over 100 miles an hour. There's a larger version of that DJI drone that I used to have that will go 110 miles an hour. But they also have enough payload capacity, meaning they can pick up more than their own weight, that they could easily carry a hand grenade, a shaped charge, mortar shell even. That's what we see in Ukraine a lot. Now, most of the drones these days in Ukraine are purpose built to be suicide drones. They're manufactured in Ukraine at scale. But at the beginning of the war, they were using these kinds of drones from DJI. I've got one right here that's a DJI Mini, and it just unfolds. You can see how small it is. This thing, let's see here, unfold it like this. Okay, looks like a little alien. And this thing weighs just under the legal limit so that you don't have to register it in the United States. 249 grams when it's flying. And these things, they have a tremendous range. This one can go more than 15, up to about 15 kilometers from the controller unit. So 7 miles, something like that. And if you were going one way, it could actually go further than that if you didn't want to bring it home again. So imagine just strapping a hand grenade to this thing, it's the size of a baseball, and then figuring out that what they do is they set it up so that when you, they rewire it, take this thing apart, it has a light on the bottom and you can turn on and off from the controller. So if you're landing it in the dark or something, you can see what's below you. And they rewire that actuator switch to an actual actuator that will open and close a claw kind of thing that goes underneath here. And then when you go to turn on the light, it opens the claw. And so you put a hand grenade in there with the spoon on it. You close the claw on it so it's holding the spoon. And then you fly it over the bad guy and you hit the light switch. It opens that up and drops it onto people. I've got lots of videos of that happening in Iraq and Syria and other places as well. And that's a very small commercially available drone. There's more than 3 million drones in the United States just from DJI alone. Now here's an even smaller drone by DJI. This is a Neo, I believe it's called. And this one's only 150 grams, but it can still fly about 7 kilometers. They say, I wouldn't try it, as long as you have it married up to a controller. This one, I don't even need a controller. I can fly it just with my phone and a virtual, flight sticks and that sort of thing. So I don't know what the payload would be on that. I don't know how far it could go with a grenade or something like that, but certainly works for surveillance. And you get this thing 100 feet in the air, you can't see it, you can't hear it, nobody knows it's there. This is the drone that I normally carry with me wherever I go. Because the kind of news that I do, sometimes I just need an establishing shot of a building or a city or something like that. I'm not doing a lot of drone work in my line of work right now. So I just carry this little tiny thing. And I've got 2 or 3 other drones around here, but you get the point. These things are easy to get. They're cheap. They're effective. And they have been used to kill lots and lots of people already in combat environments. in not just Ukraine, but in Syria and Iraq and other places as well. There was an attempted drone assassination on President Nicolas Maduro several years ago, as he was at a parade, watching a military parade in Caracas. They flew a drone over him and exploded. It exploded prematurely or something, and he wasn't injured, but could have gotten him. So you can imagine the Smotrich is out there, his next trip up to the Temple Mount. It's wide open up there. Somebody pops up a drone, flies it in there. What are those security guys going to do? They don't have a shotgun, probably. And even if they did, they'd have to be pretty good to hit something going 100 miles an hour. Matter of fact, my son and I were just talking about in your prepping, if you're a prepper and you want to be prepared for the end of the world as we know it, loss of civility, whatever you want to call it. One of the things that you should be thinking about is counter drone and using drones to your advantage and countering drones being used against you, because it's very likely that in a grid down situation, there would be people using drones to surveil your property, maybe even to take out your sentries, your guards, whatever, something like that. So we were talking about, we have a skeet range at our house in West Virginia, and we were talking about moving the thing that throws the skeet, the clay pigeons, from throwing it off to the side, throwing it across your field of vision, put it out in front of you, throwing the skeet right at you, because that's what the drones are going to look like coming at you at some point in the next war. What's even scarier than that is that there are software packages out there nowadays that will let you link up a bunch of drones like this and fly them all together in a swarm. So you can give them an objective. That objective could literally be a car, a house, a location, or not too long in the distant future, a face. You could have them looking for a face. And you could launch those things, send them out, and give them instructions to attack, even if they are beyond the visual line of sight from the controller, and have them work autonomously. That's what Ukraine just did not long ago inside Russia, where they popped up several hundred drones that were smuggled into Russia and attacked a bunch of bombers, irreplaceable Russian bombers that were being used to bomb Ukraine. And what they did is they programmed those things with AI, that if they lost contact with the controller because they were being jammed or whatever, just use the camera on the drone to look for something that was the size and shape of a bomber, and then go blow up that, go hit that. So that's already happened in combat as we speak. And so that you can't understate the danger of being some national leader like Itamar Ben-Gvir being assassinated with a drone. That's a big deal. So I'm just going to read you part of the story from Israel Hayom here. It says, Shin Bet investigation revealed that during their activities, the suspects purchased multiple drones on which they planned to mount explosives to execute the attack. The drones were confiscated during their arrest. Now, this isn't the first time that Ben-Gvir has been targeted. In November 2024, authorities filed an indictment against another cell that attempted to assassinate Ben-Gvir. According to the indictment, a man named Ismail Ibrahim Awadi, the primary defendant, began working in June 2024 to establish a military cell aimed at harming Israeli security forces and civilians. During his activities, he established contact with Hamas and Hezbollah terror organizations, attempting to secure funding and guidance for the cell's operations. He also worked to acquire weapons and produce explosive devices. So he wasn't even thinking to do it with drones. He was just thinking to, get explosives or guns or something and do it that way. But you can see how this is evolving. And this is, again, something to take very, very seriously. Now, inside, folks, we got 1,800 people watching. Do me a favor and hit that like button. That tells the algorithm that more people need to be shown this content, and it helps to grow the channel. Also, I have a question for you. I just want you to answer in the chat, if you don't mind. Have you ever flown a drone? How many of my viewers own or have flown a sport drone like this one at some point in the past? I'd like to know what percentage of my viewers are familiar with these things. So put that in the chat for me. Now, moving on to Gaza, we'll move that over there. We'll get rid of this. Okay, do you think it's disrespectful to what? Oh, to pray at the Dome of the Rock. Okay. No, it looks like you guys don't do drones much. Steve Owensby has a DJ Mavic Mini. Somebody else said, Maricopa Joe says many. So some people do. I have a Mavic. Lori says, can't remember what the model is. It's an older one. Yeah, I mean, I've got a bunch of drones and fly them just really for work. I don't do a lot of sport flying anymore. Although with my new YouTube channel that's just beautiful videos from the places that I go, I probably will be flying the drone more because people really like that footage. I put up some drone footage, for example, recently from Armenia and from, I think, Kazakhstan. And it was very well received. So if you want to know how to see that new YouTube channel, just go to the description of this video. It's in there, or maybe one of the moderators can put it into the chat. Okay. All right. So let's move on because there's a lot more stories here. Now, satellite imagery shows that there's a new nuclear reactor being built in the Middle East. And as I said before, it is definitely raising some eyebrows. Take a guess which country is building it. I'll give you just a second to do that, and I'll go on to the next story, and then we'll come back to that one. But take a guess and put it in the chat what country you think is building a new nuclear facility. Okay, then I'm not gonna do that one. So the Israelis launched a military space program. Their satellite called Ofek 19 was successfully launched. It's a reconnaissance satellite, and it has a lot of capabilities. It has capability to track aircraft, to see incoming missiles, to peer using infrared, radar, different things like that. So it's a very, very capable satellite, and is far more capable even than the United States has, than much of the satellites the United States have up. Okay, so people are saying now Turkey or Iran, Israel, Qatar, Iran, Lebanon. Yeah, JJ Otto got it right. The new nuclear facility is being built at the Dimona Nuclear Research Center in southern Israel. We have a picture here of that. Let me see here where I put that. I've got a whole bunch of. There it is. Nope, that's not it. There it is. Okay. So that's the new facility that's being built. They think it's a heavy water reactor. And, it's out in the middle of the desert. It's interesting that Israel is it's a flex is what it is, because it's like Israel saying to Iran, yeah, we're going to wipe out your nuclear program and we're going to restart our own. We're going to do more for our nuclear program. How about them apples? And the Iranians obviously are not going to like that one bit. So Go Israel. Now, inside Gaza, they are continuing to prepare the ground for the invasion of Gaza City. They haven't actually done it yet. They've made some incursions into parts of Gaza City. They've certainly been preparing the battlefield from the air with airstrikes and that sort of thing. But they've not made a large-scale incursion into Gaza City just yet. They are still preparing. They put out the call for a bunch of reservists, and they had 40,000 reservists answer the call. And so they're preparing for those reservists by staging equipment and getting it all maintained and ready to go, so that when they get those reservists all up and ready to fight, they will be able to come jump in these tanks, jump on those bulldozers, and start moving into Gaza. So that is happening very soon. Now, Israel is telling the people in Gaza City, look, the place where you live is about to become a war zone, and you don't want to be there for that. So it's time for you to leave. And we will encourage you to leave by setting up aid stations and humanitarian distribution points in the parts of Gaza where we want you to go. So in Gaza City, you're soon going to have no electricity, you're going to have no running water, and there's going to be bullets flying. So you're going to want to leave right now. Like, you've got a couple days left, but you're going to want to leave very soon. Now, there have been reports that Hamas has been blocking people from leaving Gaza City because Hamas wants to use them as human shields. And so they've been threatening people. They're setting up checkpoints and threatening people and telling them, you can't leave. Well, sounds like Israel needs to be smoking some checkpoints with, drone strikes and things like that. But apparently that's happening. Now, there's a map here of, let's see, aid stations across Gaza. You can see here that center line is Khan Yunis, right in the center of Gaza. And the aid stations are centered toward the beach, and they're toward the south. They're more and more toward the south. So they're medical facilities, aid distribution points, things like that. And Israel is telling everybody, go there and you will be taken care of. Now, Israel continues to talk about wanting to allow people to leave Gaza if they so desire. Now, they're not yet talking about forcibly relocating people out from Gaza to somewhere else. They are certainly forcibly relocating them within Gaza between neighborhoods, from one neighborhood to another, and they've been doing that throughout the entire war. Many of those reservists that are being called up, by the way, have already been to war many times. Some of them are on their 9th deployment into Gaza, if you can believe that. My friend Doron Kedar is probably one of those, and Chaim Mailspin and some of the others that we've met in there. But the Israeli government is saying, we want to give the Gazans the freedom to leave Gaza and go someplace else. And we're working with other countries like Algeria and Sudan and Libya and Ethiopia and Indonesia and places like that, that would take in Gazans. The French have agreed to take in Gazans, so maybe they ought to send a bunch of them up there. But the rest of the world, including the French and the Belgians and the Spanish and the, people from all over Europe, are just condemning Israel for even having the idea of giving these people the opportunity to leave Gaza. Oh, it's ethnic cleansing. Well, it's not ethnic cleansing if you give them a chance to leave and you don't force them to leave. Now, it's not like the ethnic cleansing that took place by Azerbaijan on Armenians in the Nagorno-Karabakh district, because Azerbaijan came in, and while on paper they said, oh, this is voluntary, nobody has to leave. what they found was that the people who didn't leave got either killed or put in jail. So it was very clear that the Armenians would not be welcome in an Azeri-run government governing the Nagorno-Karabakh district. And so all of them left because they really didn't have a choice. In Gaza, they certainly would have a choice, but nobody wants to let them, wants them to leave. And I have this interview with a Gazan man who was complaining about this. And he's saying to the Europeans who are saying, no, Gazans shouldn't leave Gaza. That's their homeland. They want to stay there. What he says is, I don't care, homeland or not. I don't want to be here. I don't want to leave. The only reason that those people in Europe want us to stay here is because they want us to die for their politics. And we don't want to. So I want you to listen to this guy from Gaza because he's speaking English and he's got some very good points to make.
Some people have called me a traitor for saying that I want to leave Gaza. I don't know why you would call someone trying to survive a traitor. I don't know why you would call someone trying to, just continue their life a traitor. And if you call me a traitor for wanting to live life whilst you're sitting in God knows where in a hotel in God knows where, who are you to speak? Who are you to call me a traitor? Why would you call me a traitor for wanting to leave the suffering that I'm going through right now? Why would you call me a traitor? Why would you call me a traitor for wanting to continue my life? Why are you calling me a traitor for wanting to live a life just like you, trying to live a life normally? It's as if that we're just meant to die as Palestinians. It's just as if we're meant to die for you. You don't want to die? You're a traitor. Why would you even say that? That's so like calling me a traitor for wanting to live a life normally, like any other human being, is so sickening. Are we a circus to you? Is our only purpose as Palestinians being seen dead on a TV? Is that really how inhumane we are? Is that really how not valuable we are and valuable to the world? We're all humans at the end of the day. We all bleed red. All of our lives are equal. And calling me a traitor on top of that, on top of wanting to not go what I'm going through right now. If you're calling me a traitor for this, shame on you. And I hope you don't experience what I'm going through. Because if you did, you would shut your mouth and you wouldn't say anything right now.
So I will stop it right there. You get the point. This kid would love to leave Gaza. He's not wedded to Gaza in any way, shape, or form. And anybody who's been to Gaza or even near Gaza, in the area around Gaza, would understand why somebody would want to leave there. Gaza is a big dirt parking lot, and it's unbelievably hot and uncomfortable and dry, and very little grows there. And to say nothing of the oppression and violence that Gazans have been suffering under Hamas for a long time. And so, look, it's not surprising to find a reasonable Palestinian in Gaza. Obviously, if you got 2.5 million people, some of those people are not going to be barbarians. Some of those people are not going to be savages that are completely uncivilized. They have access to the internet after all, and so they've been inculcated in Western values because of the internet. And those people should have every right to leave if they want to. The problem is they suffer because there are enough people in Gaza who are not civilized, who are barbarians, who are savages, who celebrated after October 7th. And it makes me wonder, I wish that I could go back and find that kid on October 8th and see what he was saying on October 8th. Because if he was out there dancing in the streets and ululating and everything over the massacre that took place in Israel, kind of hard to feel sorry for him at this point. But the bottom line is, those people ought to have the freedom to go live someplace else if they want, as long as someplace else is willing to take them. You can't go and force yourself on another country, but there are countries that are willing to take them. So there you go. Now, I met with some Palestinians from Gaza, at a refugee camp one time in Greece. I went into this refugee camp and I got talking to some guys, and one of them was Kurdish and one of them was from Gaza. And the guy from Gaza, you know, he was a, hey, what's up? Hey, come on, come over here. Hey, let me show you my house. And let me introduce you to my family and everything. It was all nice. You could tell that he was quite a bit more, he had a lot more free-floating anger than the Kurdish guy did. But he was kind enough to me, showed me around, complained a lot about that the Greeks weren't doing enough for the migrants, giving them money, and even though the Greeks were feeding them, giving them a place to live, and I'm pretty sure they get free medical care through all that at the refugee camp. And they were allowed to leave the refugee camp, and this guy from Gaza actually had a job as a security guard at a hotel someplace. So, you know, it's not like he didn't have any opportunity, but that's its own problem. If you were to spread the Palestinians out, let them go to places like Libya and Algeria and, you know, places like that. They speak the language. They understand the culture because it's a Muslim culture. And there you go. Maybe we should package them all up and drop them off, put them on a boat and drop them off on the shore at the port of Hodeida in Yemen and let them populate Yemen down there. Yemen is crazy enough as it is. Speaking of Yemen, the Houthis are fleeing the capital of Sana'a, especially the leadership, anybody that's in the police, the military, government, anything like that. They are all getting out of there immediately. There's some reports coming out that they are taking advantage of flights that are chartered by the United Nations to get out of Yemen altogether. And if the United Nations is assisting the terrorist government of the Houthis to hide their top leaders and their elites, number one, I'm not surprised. Number two, the UN needs to be roundly condemned for that, especially since, and it's kind of hard for me to believe because the Houthis literally just kidnapped 11 UN aid workers from the World Food Program in Sana'a and Hodeida. So it's kind of crazy to think that the UN might be giving them rides on airplanes unless they just aren't giving them a choice. These guys show up with guns. They say, you're letting us on the plane or else. And they get on the planes. They're essentially hijacking those planes, perhaps. I don't know. Either way, doesn't matter. They can run. They'll just die tired because Israel still can find them. And they are still hunting those guys because the Houthis fired 2 more missiles at Israel just in the last 24 hours. One of them made it all the way to the Dead Sea, so it made it into Israeli airspace. The Houthis claim it was a cluster munition. It was taken down by an interceptor. The other missile didn't even make it into Israeli airspace. It fell in the Red Sea somewhere. So the Houthis still continue to make a nuisance of themselves, even after we wiped out all but 4 of their ministers and about 50% of their cabinet. And so we'll see what happens there, but it's likely that there will be more strikes on the Houthis in the coming days. Also wanted to point out that we just saw on Skyscanner that a B-2 bomber, a B-2 Spirit bomber, has left the United States and is flying toward Europe. Don't know exactly where it's going or why or what that means, but that's something that we also will be keeping an eye on as the day goes on. So folks, make sure you hit that like button, please. And if you haven't already, go check out chuckholton.com. Over there, you can get a lot of extra content. I'm putting up graphics and articles and my documentaries and some of my CBN packages and things like that go up over there. And you can sign up for free, or you can become a supporter and actually support the work we do. I'm right in the middle of planning my next trip. It'll be coming up in the next few days, likely, and I'll give you more information about that once I get everything nailed down. But we do have some more interesting stuff coming very, very soon. All right, wanted to get to the questions before it gets too late. So let me go over here to the question sheet. Where's the question sheet? There it is. All right. So, maybe there aren't any questions today. Or maybe I just didn't update it. Maybe I need to refresh. No, it doesn't look like anybody's doing questions, putting them over there. So I will go back through the actual comments and look for questions now. Let's see here. There's the chat. Hey, thank you, VP Art. That's very kind of you. A lot going on today. Okay, so let's see here. There used to be a commercial with terrorists going into the airport security with guns and grenades, no problem. Well, before 9/11, it was there wasn't much in the way of security. The younger generation, maybe, hopefully. All right, looking for questions. So if you have a question, put it in all caps, please. It makes it easier to find it. Question is, Hamas still shooting rockets? They haven't shot any in probably a couple of weeks. There have only been one or two fired out of Gaza since I left Israel a couple of weeks ago. That was several weeks ago now. That was 3 trips ago. Good grief. So that is steadily getting less and less dangerous down there. As a matter of fact, there's a road on the Israeli side of the Gaza border that had been closed for years because of the threat of RPGs and anti-tank rockets that would be fired at cars that drove down that road. It was a road that went to the back entrance of one of the kibbutzim that was right on the border. And they had to build a big berm there to block the thing, and they had to close that road. Well, that road has now been reopened for the first time in years. And so it's, actually getting much safer in that area. Diane Britson had a question. Thoughts on Russian economist Nikolai Kondratev watching Andrew Bustamante spies thought be used okay, well, that doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about today, so I'll have to answer that on a different thing. I'm not familiar with him anyway. Jacqueline Lambert says, does Saudi Arabia have an app similar to Israel's Shofar app that alerts them to incoming rockets and such? Not that I know of. Neither does Jordan. And so several times when I've been in Jordan during this war, I see. Several times since I've been in Jordan, there have been rocket attacks that, Iran shooting rockets at Israel, or the Houthis or somebody shooting rockets. And there are in some parts of Jordan the sirens that go off, but I did not receive anything on an app, so I don't think there is. Good question. Okay, Lord Peanut says, Ben-Gvir, who keeps going to the Temple Mount, has been condemned by all the main rabbis in Israel and abroad. My question is, are people who are not Jewish aware of this? Probably not. Ben-Gvir is considered to be an extreme right-wing member of the Knesset, and he's even been kicked out of the Knesset for insulting one of the Arab members of the Knesset one time. But he is very pro-settler. He's very pro taking over Judea and Samaria. He has been very pro allowing Israelis to get their own tools to protect themselves with. And so there have been a couple 100,000 permits that have been issued, and that they keep expanding that program in Israel. And I tell you what, there just are not any training ranges. You want to start a business and make a mint, go to Israel and start a shooting range, because there are 250,000 people almost in Israel who just got their permits to carry a firearm, and they have like nowhere to train. So my friend Tim Miller is looking at doing that, actually, and I hope he gets it all worked out for sure. Klamath River Media says, why do we see Hamas using Russian, Iranian, Chinese, North Korean weapons and vice versa? Russia using on the battlefield. Are they allies? Well, all of their weapons are Soviet bloc weapons. They're based on the Soviet weapons that were around when the Soviet Union fell. Because as long as they've been allies, they have been receiving weapons from the Soviet Union and then from Russia. And China makes its own weapons, but it uses Russian or Soviet weapons as templates. So it knocks off their sort of counterfeit Russian or Soviet weapons. So obviously, there aren't too many countries in the West, NATO countries, that are going to be happy to sell weapons to any of those countries, North Korea, Iran, China, Russia, whatever. And so they have to make their own. They all work together. This summit that they just had at the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II in China, where they had an absolutely massive parade. I mean, this parade was impressive. I mean, I would have liked to have been there, actually. I mean, we don't have parades like that in the United States. And these parades, having been in the military and having had to do my share of dog and pony shows, I can tell you that those soldiers, hundreds of thousands of them in the parade, were hating their lives and questioning their life choices as they practiced over and over and over and over and over again, goose stepping in front of the podium before the actual parade. It's not like they just call those guys the day before and said, hey, be here tomorrow morning, we're going to have a parade. No, they practiced for weeks ahead of time all of those marching maneuvers and driving maneuvers and goose stepping and all that kind of stuff. And it is not fun in the least. So even though I don't agree with China, those guys can put on a parade for sure. I don't know how I got off on that subject. Mossad agent says, Chuck, are you going to talk about the launch of the Ofek 90? Yeah, I did. Karen Vaughn asked a question yesterday, but life happens and missed the rest of the show. How many countries that were majority Christian and are now majority Islam? It's a good question. I don't know about majority Christian. I know Lebanon was majority Christian at one point, but Islam certainly, one of their methods of conquest is to just outbreed the hosts of the countries that they move to. And they are very good at that. And they've done that in many countries in Europe. They are doing that in the United States as well, although it'll be a long time before they're going to, I mean, at least we have Christians in the United States in sufficient numbers who are not falling prey to this liberal, there's too many people in the world, the climate's going to die, and all that stupid religion, the religion of climate science that they have. And so Christians are being fruitful and multiplying and helping to skew the curve in the United States. But if you take the Christians out of America, then what you have are liberals who don't breed at all. Everything they do leads to death. I mean, think about it. Abortion, euthanasia, gay marriage, none of that leads to life and human flourishing, right? And then you have the Muslims who have 7 child per woman. You can see where that would end up over time, right? Mama says, as of September 26th, YouTube is cutting the amount of overseas content for subscribers. No, I wasn't aware of that. Question, thoughts about the Chinese military parades with Russia, China? Okay, I already just talked about that. Where are the drones and their components you're talking about manufactured? They're all manufactured in China. A lot of the drones we're seeing in Ukraine now that are killing Ukrainians are coming from China as well. Many of them, you can buy all the components off of Alibaba. As a matter of fact, Matt Tardio just showed that on his show today. So yeah, China is the place where all of those are coming from. Have help line to Israel or hotline to report where Hamas is located. Oh, do Gazans have helpline? Uh, yes. The Israelis drop leaflets all the time on Gaza saying, if you want to give us information leading to the safe return of our hostages, we will give you $5 million and a free ticket out of Gaza to anywhere you want to go, and we will pay for your lodging. And so they do everything they can to make it worth their while, and they give them a way to contact the Israelis, and so far nobody's taken them up on it. The new plan that just got leaked from the Israelis about moving people out of Gaza would give every Gazan who voluntarily leaves Gaza to go somewhere else $5,000 cash. Now that's a fortune in Gaza. They would give them a free travel to wherever they're going, would give them housing wherever they're going, and a stipend for like 2 years wherever they want to go. So they are really trying to make it worth the Gazans' while to leave. And yet, I mean, so let me just ask you, is that behavior that's consistent with a genocide? If you want to genocide a population of people, do you pay them to go somewhere else, to leave and get out of the war zone? I've never seen that before. Lord Peanut says, if it's a refugee camp, how is it their homeland? Yeah, because they still call themselves refugees in Gaza because they say their homeland is in Israel proper. Well, these people were all born in Gaza. There are very few people left who were not born in Gaza. And so if you're born in Gaza by any other metric, in any other refugee crisis, once you have a whole generation born in the new country, you're no longer considered to be refugees. The Gazans are the only ones that the UN still considers to be refugees 70, 80 years after, 70 years or so after the so-called Nukba, right? How is allowing people to leave a refugee camp ethnic cleansing? Good question. I love your rhetorical questions, Lord Peanut. How are people in Gaza staying bathed? And I've noticed all the men well-trimmed and hair pretty. Look, they only show you pictures of Gaza of the places that have been destroyed. There are still lots of places in Gaza that have not been destroyed. There are restaurants open, there are shopping malls open, there are marketplaces, and there are barbershops. So it's not like these people are living in tents in the rubble. The only people who are living in tents in the rubble are people who have chosen to stay in a location where they've been asked to leave. And so there's that. Okay. Adam Forbes says, oh no, that was his question. Nancy asks, do you know if the U.S. has already brought a couple hundred of Gazans into New York? Yes, Gazans who needed medical care were allowed to come into the United States to receive that medical care and are being cared for in hospitals. Now, the Trump administration shut that down, but there was a program that was bringing them in. Herschel Welton says, where are the women and female children in Gaza? Films? Yeah, most of the films you see are of men, out in public. The only time you see women is when the Palestinian or the Hamas is trying to make it look like people are starving. Then they trot out the women and children. But they are there for sure. Okay, Karen, still shooting rockets. Pam says, can you recap the assassination attempt story? Got here late. Yeah, the Shin Bet arrested a terror cell out of Hebron in the last week, who was planning to assassinate Itamar Ben-Gvir using DJI drones like this one with like a grenade strapped to it. And they confiscated the drones and all that. The real part of that story, the real interesting part of that story, is that those guys were being commanded by a terror cell in Turkey. So Hamas is relocating its headquarters to Turkey, and Turkey is a NATO ally, and we're allowing them to do it. It's crazy. It's insane. The United States should be sanctioning Turkey for allowing Hamas inside their borders. At Elaine, the DJI drone ban still going forward, or has it stalled? So what he's talking about is the Trump administration has said that they're going to ban DJI drones like this one in the United States, I think starting the end of December or something like that this year. And the reason is because these drones are made in China, and they have found that at least they suspect, that everything you do with one of these drones, what you're filming, where you're going, maybe even it's listening to you, I don't know, all of that data is being sent back to China through the internet. And China uses it to train their AI models and look for ways to perform espionage of different kinds, whether it's military espionage or corporate espionage or cultural espionage. They're looking for ways to become the global hegemon and defeat the United States of America. So the Trump administration has said, we're not going to allow them in the States anymore. I don't think you can, I don't think that would really be enforceable, at least on civilians. I think it's going to be very difficult. I mean, they haven't been able to ban TikTok yet, and TikTok gathers a lot more intel on Americans than drones do, for sure. So if they haven't been able to stop TikTok, I don't think they're going to be able to stop drones from DJI in the United States. And I would be willing to stop using DJI drones and buy drones from an American manufacturer if there was an American manufacturer that made drones that were worth anything. But so far there are not, so we're stuck. Okay. All right, I think that is all for our questions. Thank you very much for watching the Hot Zone, everybody. Please, again, don't forget to hit the like button and make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and go over to chuckholton.com. There's a lot of good stuff over there, and you're going to like what you see. So I'm going to be talking to the CEO of Preserve Gold today, and I'm going to record that conversation, and I'm going to put that up as an extra on there so you can learn a little bit about the gold industry from the guy who started Preserve Gold. And I think you're going to like that a lot. All right. So stay tuned. Keep watching the channel, and we'll see you next time, I guess tomorrow. Take care.